Have you ever felt like you were up against a lie so massive, so intimidating that it just felt impossible to fight back? You know when deception comes at you like a tidal wave? Well, today we're diving into what it actually takes to stand firm in that kind of storm, to be the lighthouse when everything else is being washed away. So let's start with maybe the oldest story there is about an impossible fight. You've got this young kid, David, and he's looking at Goliath, a giant warrior who has an entire army just frozen in fear. But David, he sees it completely differently. For him, this isn't just about a big guy with a sword. No, this is personal. This is a spiritual challenge. Okay, now let's fast forward a few thousand years. We land in a modern battle, one that's fought with headlines and allegations instead of swords and shields. Here, you have Congressman Matt Gaetz, and he frames the accusations against him in a really similar way. He says this wasn't just some random thing that happened. It was a deliberate, coordinated operation, an op, designed specifically to take him out. It's wild, right? Two totally different worlds, but the theme is almost identical. All right, so let's dig into that. What do these threats actually look like? What happens when that giant, ancient or modern, starts taunting you? On one side, you have the ancient challenge. It's a physical giant, right? His very presence is an act of intimidation against a whole nation. But on the other side, you've got the modern op. It's this whole web of false claims, behind-the-scenes moves, and even an alleged extortion plot. But you see the common thread? Both are designed to completely overwhelm and silence their target. And the scale of this modern operation, it is just staggering. According to Gaetz, we're not talking about small potatoes here. His father was allegedly hit with a demand for $25 million to make these accusations just go away. A plot that he says even involved an Israeli consulate official. That is an insane amount of pressure, and it's designed to crush just about anyone. So when you're facing that kind of an assault, what do you even hold on to? And that brings us to the core defense we see in these stories, a bedrock of belief. Let's use an analogy here to really get it. Picture a coordinated lie as a massive storm surge. The waves are just deafening, they look all powerful, and it seems like they're swallowing everything in their path. It's completely disorienting, and frankly, it's terrifying. But here's the thing about a lighthouse. It isn't built on sand. It's built on solid bedrock. And that's the whole idea here. The waves of lies, no matter how huge and powerful they seem, they eventually just break and crash against that unmovable bedrock of truth. Why? Because the waves have no real substance. But the bedrock remains. So what was David's bedrock? Well, it was his faith, but a faith built on real experience. He wasn't just, crossing his fingers and hoping for the best. He literally looked back at his life and said, hey, God has already proven himself. He delivered me from a lion and a bear. He's got my back. His past victories were the very foundation for his courage in that moment. So what's the modern parallel to that? For Congressman Gaetz, his bedrock is a total reliance on verifiable, testable facts. He keeps pointing out that, yeah, the accusations are loud, but no one has actually been willing to make them under oath, in a legal setting where you can question the evidence and do cross-examination. For him, the truth is what can actually be proven when the pressure is on. But here's where it gets really interesting. It's not enough to just stand on your beliefs. Both of these stories show us that deep conviction has to be paired with some very deliberate preparation. Think about it for a second. If David was so absolutely certain that God was going to deliver a victory, why not just walk out there with empty hands? Why the very specific action of gathering 5 smooth stones for his slingshot? It seems kind of like a weird detail if faith alone was supposed to be the weapon, right? Well, the source material gives us this fascinating detail. Goliath had 4 brothers. So David's faith gave him the courage to face the giant? Absolutely. But his preparation? That ensured he was ready for the giant's entire family. He wasn't just preparing for the immediate threat. He was preparing for the full scope of the opposition. Faith and action together. So we've seen how faith and facts can be a personal bedrock. But what happens when the very ground under that bedrock starts to shift? What if the institutions that kind of shape our shared reality start to see objective truth not as a foundation, but as an obstacle? This next slide has a quote from a leaked video that is pretty startling. A Wikipedia executive suggests that when we're dealing with really tricky disagreements, our reverence for the truth might actually be a distraction, a roadblock that stops us from finding consensus and getting productive things done. This philosophy is basically what you could call pragmatic consensus. the goal actually shifts away from finding objective capital T truth to finding something more achievable, the best of what we can know right now. The number one priority becomes agreement, moving forward, not necessarily being right. Now, as you can probably imagine, this idea didn't exactly land well with everybody. The reaction in the source commentary was visceral. People called it bananas and, most pointedly, Orwellian. A reference to a world where truth is just whatever the powerful decide it is that day. And this leaves us in a really complicated spot. So let's try to put these two clashing worldviews side by side. What really is the ultimate defense in our modern world? So on one side, you have this idea of the bedrock of truth. It's built on individual conviction, on faith, on objective, testable facts. But on the other side, you have this new idea, consensus over truth, which prioritizes productivity, group agreement, and this much more fluid concept of the best we can know now. So that leaves us with this final, massive question. In an age of sophisticated ops and institutional arguments that truth itself is a distraction, what do we actually rely on? Is the ultimate defense an unshakable personal bedrock of truth? Or has functional, productive consensus become the only practical way forward? Something to think about.